Let me ask you something. Why do so many cars hit 100,000 miles and suddenly feel like they're on their last legs, while a mechanic's personal car will cruise past 300,000 without breaking a sweat? People think it's luck, or they think mechanics secretly drive better cars. Wrong. The truth is, at 100,000, mechanics quietly do a whole list of services that most drivers never even hear about. Services that never show up on a repair invoice unless you specifically ask. And if you don't, your car slowly eats itself alive until it limps into the shop with a fat bill. Over 70% of major breakdowns happen after 100,000. That's not a coincidence. That's neglect. And today, I'm exposing the exact checklist mechanics run through on their own cars. The little secrets that keep them alive long after the odometer rolls 6 digits. Stick around, because the last one is the silent killer of cars. Skip it, and even a healthy engine won't save you. Let's start small, with the cabin air filter. Most drivers forget it exists, out of sight, out of mind, until one day you crank your AC and the car smells like a sweaty gym locker. But that smell, that's just the symptom. The real problem is hidden deeper. That little square of paper is the lungs of your car's ventilation system. When it clogs, it suffocates the entire system. Think about what it's stopping. Pollen, dirt, leaves, even mold spores. I've pulled filters out of cars at 100,000 that looked like mouse nests. Fur, acorns, leaves packed so tight that no light could pass through. And the owner wonders why the blower motor died. That motor had been fighting a losing battle for months, working twice as hard to push half the air. Overheat, strain, fail. And a blower motor isn't cheap. Neither is the evaporator core behind it, which clogs with grime and bacteria when airflow drops. Suddenly, a $10 filter is the difference between a car that smells fresh and one that needs a $1,000 AC rebuild. The manual says 10,000 to 15,000 miles. Mechanics laugh at that. On our own cars, we swap it every oil change, every 3 to 5,000. Why? Because we know it's not just comfort, it's protection. Here's the test. Pull it out and shine a flashlight through. If you can't see daylight, your AC is already gasping for air. Don't stretch it. Don't be cheap. Replace it. For less than the cost of a fast food meal, you protect your AC, your blower, and your sanity. One little filter, one little checkpoint. Ignore it, and you're already falling behind at 100,000. Next up, the battery and charging system. The thing that decides whether your car starts at all. Here's the ugly truth. Batteries don't just suddenly die one morning. They get weak. They crank slower. They complain every time the weather turns cold. But drivers don't notice until the day the car won't start. Mechanics notice. At 100,000, we always test. We don't guess based on age or wait for it to fail. We load test. If a battery is rated for 600 cold cranking amps and it's only producing 400, that's a ticking time bomb. It might last a few more weeks, or it might leave you stranded at midnight in a grocery store parking lot. But here's the real trap. Most dead batteries were perfectly fine. They were killed by the alternator. I've seen cars come in with their third replacement battery in 2 years. The problem wasn't the battery at all. Wonder it was an alternator that couldn't hold 13.5 to 14.5 volts. Every time the car ran, it starved the battery to death. That's why mechanics don't just check the battery. We check the whole system. Test voltage with the engine running, pop the serviceable caps, check electrolyte levels. I've seen batteries literally dry inside. That crusty green corrosion on the terminals. It's not just ugly, it's resistance, eating away at your charging system. A simple cleaning with baking soda and a dab of dielectric grease keeps it healthy. Because here's the deal, a dead battery isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. It fails at the worst possible moment, in the cold, at night, or when you're already late. Mechanics test at 100,000 so they never need a stranger's jumper cables. And here's the kicker, deswapping a battery is pocket change compared to what's next. Because the next thing, if you ignore it, won't just stop your engine from starting. It'll make the engine shake itself apart. Spark plugs, they're tiny, but they're the heartbeat of your engine. Every single spark plug fires millions of times by the time you hit 100,000 miles. Millions. And you think they'll just keep going forever? Manuals tell you that platinum and iridium plugs last 120,000. Mechanics don't push it that far. At 100,000, we replace them without hesitation. Here's why. As plugs wear, the gap widens. That makes your ignition coils work harder and harder just to spark. Eventually, the coils burn out. And coils aren't cheap. On older cars with copper plugs, forget it. They're toast by 30,000. Leave them in too long, and you're not just losing power. You're dumping raw fuel into the exhaust, cooking the catalytic converter. That's a $1,000 mistake caused by a $15 set of plugs. Think of it this way, would you run a marathon in the same shoes for 10 years? Of course not, but drivers expect spark plugs to perform millions of perfect ignitions without ever wearing out. That's not how it works. Mechanics don't wait for misfires or flashing check engine lights. We replace them early. Smooth idle, better fuel economy, strong acceleration, all back instantly. And while we're there, we inspect every coil. If one's cracked or arcing, it goes too. Because once one coil dies, the rest usually follow. Ignore it, and your savings turn into a tow truck bill. Your car shakes like a washing machine. The check engine light flashes, and you'll wish you had just swapped the plugs. And speaking of shaking, let's talk about mounts. Engine and transmission mounts are the cushions that keep your powertrain firmly in place. At 100,000, those cushions are cooked. Rubber that's been baked by heat, soaked in oil, and hammered by torque for years doesn't just bounce back, it collapses. That's when the engine starts rocking every time you hit the gas. Shifts feel like slams. Exhaust pipes crack from stress. At red lights, the car vibrates so hard it feels like a bad massage chair. Hydraulic mounts leak fluid and collapse. Transmission mounts sag until you hear clunks every time you accelerate. Here's the test. Pry gently with a bar. If the engine lifts like bread dough, the mount is gone. Mechanics know it instantly. And here's the secret. Replacing mounts transforms the car overnight. Suddenly the ride is smooth, solid, like the car's years younger. Ignore them, and the vibration slowly rattles your entire car to death. Most shops won't mention mounts unless you complain. Why? Labor-heavy job, big bill, they don't want to spook you. But mechanics? We check them religiously on our own cars, because nothing makes a car feel old faster than shot mounts. And if you think vibration from mounts is bad, wait until you see what happens when a $10 valve strangles your engine from the inside out. The PCV valve, the single most ignored part in the engine bay. Ask 10 drivers what it does, half won't even know it exists. Positive crankcase ventilation, it relieves pressure inside your engine. Without it, pressure builds. Oil gets shoved into the intake, past seals into spark plugs. Engines start guzzling oil, emissions fail, sludge builds up everywhere. And here's the worst part, it's cheap. $10. Mechanics replace them at 30 to 50,000. We inspect them every 20,000. Shake it. If it rattles, it's good. If it's gummed up or stuck, it's overdue. We also check the hoses. By 100,000, they're usually soft, cracked, or collapsed. Replace them. Together, this little system is the difference between a healthy engine and one that suffocates itself to death. But airflow isn't the only killer, heat is, and nothing kills engines faster. Coolant doesn't last forever. At 100,000, if you haven't flushed it, you're on borrowed time. It turns acidic, stops protecting aluminum, and starts eating it instead. Radiators rot from the inside, heater cores clog, water pumps seize, and suddenly your fine engine overheats and warps a head gasket. Mechanics never let it get that far. At 100,000, we overhaul the system. Drain, flush with distilled water until clear. Replace thermostat, inspect hoses and clamps. Refill with OEM coolant, bleed air pockets out. Pressure test the system, confirm fan cycle, check levels again the next day. Done right, it resets the entire cooling system's clock. Done wrong, or not done at all, you're one traffic jam away from catastrophic damage. And while heat silently kills engines, worn bushings silently kill suspension. By 100,000, rubber suspension bushings are cracked, torn, or missing entirely. You feel it as looseness, clunks, or a car that wanders on the highway. But what you don't see is the suspension chewing itself apart from metal-on-metal contact. Tires wear uneven, alignment drifts, steering gets sloppy. Mechanics crawl under and check every control arm, sway bar, trailing arm. If bushings are split or fluid-filled types are leaking, they go. Sometimes the whole arm gets replaced. And here's the magic. Fresh bushings make a car ride like new again. Drivers think their car is just old. Mechanics know better. Ignore them, and your suspension rattles itself to death. Now, brakes. Your only lifeline at 70 miles per hour, brake fluid absorbs water. By 100,000, it's loaded with moisture, rusting calipers and corroding ABS pumps. Mechanics flush it every 2 years, 30,000 miles. At 100,000, it's mandatory. Pressure bleed, fresh DOT fluid, caliper pins cleaned and greased, pads and rotors inspected, brake hoses checked. Fresh fluid gives you a firm pedal when you need it most. Skip it, and your first sign of failure might be the moment you can't stop. Engines also choke on carbon. That's why mechanics clean fuel systems at 100,000. Injectors that should mist fuel now dribble it. Direct injection engines get valves caked in carbon that cleaners can't even touch. Mechanics run quality cleaner through the tank, then rail-fed pressurized cleaner for injectors. For DI engines, walnut blasting intake valves restores lost power. Ignore it, and your car slowly loses MPG, throttle response, and reliability. Then come the oxygen sensors. By 100,000, they're sluggish. They tell the ECU the wrong info. The engine runs rich, fuel economy tanks, and the catalytic converter gets cooked. Mechanics check waveforms with a scan tool, slow or flat. Replace. Exhaust leaks upstream? Fix them. Fresh O2 sensors sharpen fuel trims, protect the cat, and restore mileage. Ignore them and you're one step away from a $1,000 converter bill. Now the silent assassin, the timing system. Belt snap, chain stretch, tensioner seize. At 100,000, mechanics don't wait. We replace the belt, tensioner idlers. If the water pump rides on the belt, it goes too. Torque it to spec, align perfectly, hand rotate the crank. One mistake, one skipped tooth, and you can kill an engine. Mechanics don't gamble. We spend a few hundred now to save thousands later. Drivers who wait, they find out the hard way, usually on the side of the highway. And finally, the most forgotten service of all, differentials and transfer cases. Manuals say lifetime. Mechanics know lifetime means until it fails. At 100,000, that fluid is dark, full of metal, and cooked. Ignore it, and gears whine, bearings seize, and units lock up. Mechanics drain and refill at 100,000 every time. Cheap service, huge payoff. Ignore it, and you're staring at a $3,000 bill. And that's the list. Crossing 100K isn't the end, it's the fork in the road. One path leads to a car that limps into the scrapyard by 150. The other leads to a car that sails past 300. The difference isn't luck, it isn't brand, it's this checklist. Mechanics know it, now you do too.